Hi, welcome to Gotham Reader Radio. I'm your host, the Gotham Reader, and before we jump into the issue today, I just want to make a couple of corrections from the last episode. Most notably, I referred to the villain as Curtis Stryker. His name was actually Alfred Stryker. Curtis Stryker is a fictional character from a different IP. I also alluded that Batman would be stopping a bank robbery today. That is not the case. He's actually going to be stopping a jewel robbery. My apologies for if I misled anyone. But with that in mind, let's jump into the issue proper, which is titled Frenchy Blake's Jewel Gang, featured in Detective Comics number 28, published in June 1939, with art being done by Bob Kane and being written by Bill Finger, with the art of the cover for the issue being done by Fred Guardinier, who was a Pulp Fiction artist who did a few of the detective comic book covers at the time. Before starting the story proper, I guess let's just kind of discuss where we left off from the last issue, in which we were introduced to the primary character of this channel, the Batman, who in reality is the young socialite playboy Bruce Wayne, who, as the Batman, doles out vigilante justice for reasons we do not know. Um, these choices have put him at ends with the only other major character that's been introduced so far, Commissioner Gordon. Other than that, there's not too much we know about this mysterious figure. So let's see what else we could find out by jumping into the next issue, and we'll start by taking a look at the cover page. While at first it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the Batman, he is not even featured on the cover. I actually believe this is kind of setting up for what the primary focus of the issue is going to be about. Mainly because if we take a look at the issue, we do see two men outside of the bank that are being held at gunpoint by the police officers. So we could assume that they're most likely criminals. And if we pay attention to how they're dressed, I think that will give us a hint to who they are in the story itself. Other than that, I do want to make note that at the top of the issue, there is a little blurb that says this month and every month, the Batman. So we can infer that the first issue was a success, and it's going to be the flagship carrying Detective Comics moving forward. Which I guess I should explain. I didn't really discuss it last issue. Batman isn't the only story that is featured in Detective Comics at this time. There's quite a few different narratives going on. All of them are a pulp fiction flavor, I guess you could say, with Batman kind of being the only one that's really superhero coded. But with that out of the way, let's now move into the beginning of the story, starting with our title splash and the blurb to kind of set the setting for the story. The Batman, a mysterious and adventurous figure fighting for righteousness and apprehending the menaces of society. In his lone battle against the evil, his identity remains unknown. And in parentheses, we establish he is one Bruce Wayne, bored young socialite. From there, we see a young newspaper boy notifying the people in the street that there has been a $100,000 jewel robbery, the fifth one that has occurred. And for, I guess, inflation, that's about $2.5 million. So this isn't just kind of small chump change, this is pretty big fish. We next see Bruce Wayne making a phone call, And during this phone call, he chooses to impersonate Commissioner Gordon to shake down a stool pigeon to get information on who might possibly be behind these jewel robberies, which the criminal in question sings like a canary, revealing that it is none other than Frenchy Blake and his jewel gang that is behind these thefts. And from here, we truly begin the story, I guess, from where the cover page leaves off. Because if we take a look at these two men in question, we can see that their outfits resemble that of the two men on the cover page. While I don't know if this is actually the case, I personally like to believe that the two are connected. Now, we see that these two men are in the middle of a heist and are trying to escape by a rooftop before they're confronted by the mysterious figure, the Batman, who quickly defeats the criminals, even sending one careening off the rooftop. And with the remaining criminal defeated, Batman does something very peculiar. He bends down to pick up the stolen jewels in question right when two officers appear. The Batman freezes, making sure that the officers take notice of what he was doing, and then, using his bat-like agility, jumps from the top of the rooftop and swings from the building using a silk rope that he had lassoed to another building, leaving the officers in complete awe of such physical display. We then jump to the next day, in which we see the headlines of a newspaper read, Batman, head of Jewel Gang, eludes capture in spectacular leap. And we see that the person reading the newspaper is quite a dapper gentleman who turns out to be none other than Frenchy Blake, the actual leader of the Jewel Gang, who laments on what Batman has already cost him, being the cause of the death of one of his men, as well as the reason another one of his men is in jail. But Frenchy Blake takes a bit of pleasure in the newspaper because it shows that the police are on the wrong trail, and he decides to use this advantage to pull off an even bigger heist than the one that Batman had foiled. But little did Frenchy know that the Batman was hanging from the outside of his hideout, listening to every word he said, plotting the downfall of Frenchy Blake's Jewel Gang. So I want to take a quick minute to go over what just happened, because a lot did. This is quite the action-packed issue. A lot is really set up for us to see the evolution of the Batman as far as kind of what he's capable of. The biggest thing that I really, really want to point out is what he accomplished by pretending to grab the jewels. The comic does spell it out pretty clear that it was to frame himself, but he did all this with the purpose to get Frenchy to lower his guard and make a plan for his next theft so Batman could get one step ahead of him. How Batman knew where to find Frenchy's hideout? General comic book magic. Maybe Bruce, just like he shook down the police informant at the beginning of the issue, maybe has other ways of getting information that we're not quite privy to. The other big thing is Batman is more than just a man of fisticuffs, it seems. He, after defeating the criminals, he did what could only be described as a absolute feat of acrobatics. He tumbled off a building while lassoing another building with a silk rope and soaring across the sky to escape police officers. It's going to be kind of an iconic thing that Batman does, or I guess way he traverses the city. Lastly, I would like to point out that the bat suit is still in kind of design evolution. We see that there is no gloves this time around. The cowl also seems to be a little bit more exaggerated. Other than that, oh, and the utility belt is a little bit more blocky in shape. That being said, it's still, once again, more or less the Bat outfit that most people are familiar with. It just seems that Bob Kane is kind of getting the design dialed in. Now, back to the issue at hand. We see that Frenchy's men have began to ransack an apartment, but little did they know, coming like a ball of justice is none other than the mysterious figure of the night, the Batman. And this is the first time we really kind of get to see Batman take on overwhelming odds. And it truly showcases him almost on that superhuman level where you might wonder, is there something more to Bruce Wayne that allows him to do these kind of feats that we've seen throughout this comic? But nonetheless, he overwhelms Frenchy's men and subdues them. Even takes time to call the police, notifying Commissioner Gordon that there is a surprise waiting for them at the location at hand. We then jump over to Frenchy, who is waiting patiently at his hideout playing solitaire when a knock comes at his door. And much to his chagrin, it is none other than the Batman, who immediately proceeds to punch out Frenchy and tie a rope around him, which he then tosses Frenchy from the window of his hideout to coax a confession out of him, acknowledging that he's the criminal mastermind behind all the jewel thefts. Frenchy immediately agrees, fearing for his life as he hangs from the strand of rope. Batman then pulls up Frenchy so he could write his confession. But while writing his confession, Frenchy makes one last attempt to kill Batman, only to be met with the fist of justice. Batman then ties up Frenchy and delivers him directly to the police headquarters, leaving a note for the commissioner that reads, "Dear Commissioner, I thought you might like to have the leader of the jewel gang. I'm also leaving his confession and stolen jewels. Till we meet again, I remain." And we see just the symbol of a black bat, and a small smile comes across the commissioner's face, wondering what the mysterious Batman could have been up to tonight. And that is where the issue ends. Some closing thoughts. Number one, this little interaction between Batman and Frenchy, with him using extreme interrogation methods to get confessions out of criminals, is going to become a hallmark of Batman's, I guess you could say. And really, that kind of sums up this issue. A lot of what we are going to come to understand from the Batman, like just foundational ideas that we know of when we have a very, very basic idea of Batman. The superhuman aspects, or somewhat superhuman aspects, of being an amazing acrobat, as stated earlier, the ability to take on multiple men at once, the impossible speed at which he travels at, this cavalier attitude of whatever needs to be done to achieve justice, even the high level of intelligence and strategizing that we see when he intentionally frames himself at the beginning of the comic. And most importantly, while he did technically, let's say, secondhand cause the death of one of the criminals in this story, he still has a overall sense of justice. He chose not to kill Frenchy at the end. He subdued him. He took him to the police headquarters so Commissioner Gordon can try him in a court of law. I don't know how much of Batman's acquired proof would be accepted, but it's comic book world. We don't have to think about those things. We just know that because of the actions of Batman, the streets are a little bit safer tonight. With that in mind, without the action, there still isn't too much to Batman as a character. We do get some quips from him, but it's nothing I would say that's insightful. We do get the little blurb at the beginning where where the narrator acknowledges that Bruce Wayne is bored. So this might tie back into the possibility that this is just the gallivanting of a young socialite in the need of entertainment. But with that in mind, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions on the Batman so far? Were you in awe of his amazing acrobatics and feats of incredible strength, his cunning intelligence? Did any of you kind of take note in how maybe the cinematic aspect that a lot of people try to capture of the Batman, I feel like a lot of it's in this issue. Like when people have romanticized ideas of classic Batman, I feel this is the issue that a lot of people look to. The previous one was presenting you with the idea of the Batman. This one was actually showing you the meat and potatoes of the Batman. But I guess last things I would say is I definitely like the cowl with the pointier ears. Yeah, I think we'll close it there. And with that, for a little spoiler for next issue, in which Batman gets a supervillain. Thank you for listening.